Good morning, dear students. In this lecture, we will discuss the theme of the poem Ozymandias. It is written by Percy Bysshe Shelley. The poem Ozymandias is devoted to a single metaphor: the shattered, ruined statue in the desert wasteland with its arrogant, passionate face and the inscription, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." The once great king's proud boast has been ironically disproved. Ozymandias' works have crumbled and disappeared. His civilization is gone. All has been turned to dust by the impersonal, indiscriminate, destructive power of history. The ruined statue is now merely a monument to one man's hubris and a powerful statement about the insignificance of human beings to the passage of time. Ozymandias is first and foremost a metaphor for the ephemeral nature of political power, and in that sense, the poem is Shelley's most outstanding political sonnet, trading the specific rage of a poem like England in 1819 for the crushing impersonal metaphor of the statue. But Ozymandias symbolizes not only political power, the statue can be a metaphor for the pride of all of humanity in any of its manifestations. It is significant that all the remains of Ozymandias is a work of art and a group of words, as Shakespeare does in the sonnets. Shelley demonstrate that art and language long outlast the other legacies of power. Of course, it is Shelley's brilliant poetic rendering of the story, and not the subject of the story itself, which makes the poem so memorable. Framing the sonnet as a story told to the speaker by a traveler from an antique land enables Shelley to add another level of obscurity to Ozymandias' position with regard to the reader. Rather than seeing the statue with our own eyes, so to speak, we hear about it from someone who heard about it from someone who has seen it. Thus, the ancient king is rendered even less commanding. The distancing of the narrative serves to undermine his power over us just as completely as has the passage of time. Shelley's description of the statue works to reconstruct gradually the figure of the King of Kings. First, we see merely the shattered visage, then the face itself with its frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. Then we are introduced to the figure of the sculptor and are able to imagine the living man sculpting the living king, whose face wore the expression of the passions now ineffable. Then we are introduced to the king's people, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. The kingdom is now imaginatively complete, and we are introduced to the extraordinary prideful boast of the king. With that, the poet demolishes our imaginary picture of the king and interposes centuries of ruin between it and us. Overall, the message of Shelley's Ozymandias is in the idea that power is temporary, even that of great rulers who may believe their power to be immortal. Basically, the poem reminds powerful people that their power is only temporary. However, much powerful people may wish to think that their power is immortal. They are only deceiving themselves. Earthly power is mutable, and indeed, all human beings need to remember this lesson. As a romantic poet, Shelley was deeply respectful of nature and skeptical of humanity's attempts to dominate it. Fittingly, his Ozymandias is not simply a warning about the transience of political power, but also an assertion of humanity's impotence compared to the natural world. The statue in the poem describes has very likely become a colossal wreck precisely because of the relentless forces of sand and wind erosion in the desert. This combined with the fact that lone and level sands have taken over everything that once surrounded the statue suggests nature as an unstoppable force to which human beings are ultimately subservient. Shelley's imagery suggests a natural world whose might is far greater than that of humankind. The statue is notably found in a desert, a landscape hostile towards life. That the statue is trunkless suggests sandstorms eroded the torso or buried it entirely, while the face being shattered implies humanity's relative weakness. Even the destruction of a hulking piece of stone is nothing for nature. The fact that the remains of the statue are half sunk under the sand, meanwhile, evokes a kind of burial. In fact, the statement, nothing beside remains, can be read as casting the fragments of the statue as the remains of a corpse. The encroaching sand described in the poem suggests that nature has steadily overtaken a once great civilization and buried it. Just as well, nature will one day reclaim everything humanity has built and every individual human as well. The desert, not Ozymandias, is thus the most powerful tyrant in Shelley's poem. It is boundless and stretches far away as though it has conquered everything the eye can see, just as it has conquered Ozymandias' statue. Ozymandias may be the king of kings, but even kings can be toppled by mere grains of sand. Thank you.